Well, the only way you could believe this is an artificially high budget if you believed Governor Perry, who's been the governor for the last 10 years, had $11 billion worth of frivolous spending in the budget, or on the House version, $23 billion, because that's what's being cut. Money Governor Perry already approved and already told us last time was essential to meeting the needs of Texas. But on the rainy day fund, Arlene misunderstands that 15% figure. If I say to you, your boat should have a life jacket on it at all times, that means you got a life jacket, but when the boat goes down, you don't keep the life jacket on the boat. You jump into the water wearing the life jacket. And that's what Center on Budget is saying, that ideally you keep a rainy day fund of about 15%, but you use it when the boat's going down. And that's the situation we have now, where we've had the greatest economic downturn since the Depression. So imagine what the governor and the House are saying. They're saying in the greatest economic downturn since the recession, we're not going to use our economic stabilization fund, which the voters created for this very purpose, not to cover merely a deficit in the current year. If you look at the Constitution, it covers three situations: a current year deficit, when you have less revenue this time than last time, or with a 2/3 vote for any purpose. Never designed for hurricanes, designed for this very problem, which is a severe downturn causing revenue to collapse, meaning we're going to have to take serious steps that are going to hurt a lot of Texas families.
Which we've already spent $3 billion, and which I think was fully authorized, and with which we agreed in the current biennium deficit. But the budget that Mr. McCown advocates, spending another $27 billion in this budget, would be an 18% increase over the next 2 years, and is actually about $8 billion more than the Constitution allows to be spent. So that number of trying to add in $27 billion is not supportable.
We've never argued for $27 billion. What we've said is that current services to do the same thing next time that we're doing this time would cost $27 billion. That's the number of what you would need to maintain current services. Never a thought that we could do that. The thought was we're going to have a balanced approach that has some cuts, some substantial amount from the rainy day fund, and some new revenue. And that's what we don't have.
I'd be very eager to hear what cuts you would advocate, because you said in the Statesman online chat after the governor's State of the State address, you can tie me down and torture me, but I'm still not going to talk about what to cut.
That's right, I'm not, because you do a fine job of talking about cutting, Arlene. I'm taking the same approach that Vice Chair Turner took, which is when I'm looking between serious cuts to public ed and serious cuts to higher ed or denying people health care, I'm not going to sit down and talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about how we do the most we can to meet the needs of Texas.
Let me ask you about a real-world situation going on right now. We can talk about block grants. That's something that's not going to happen in the short term. We do have some polls out that indicate that the number one thing Texans do not want to cut is funding for nursing homes for Medicaid patients. This, as I mentioned, this Senate bill cut 6% out of their reimbursements when their costs are rising. What would you say to folks who have people in nursing homes right now? Can you be confident that these homes will not be closing across the state?
I do feel like that is one thing that they'll work out in conference committee. What we are saying is that we support the budget being within the available revenue, and the legislature has to work out the priorities of what is the appropriate place to spend the money and the appropriate place to cut the services. We believe that there are a lot of places that could be cut that have not been looked at. This is an opportunity for true reform of government. You know, one of the things that's discussed quite a bit is the education budget, and certainly we believe in a strong education system in the state of Texas, but You know, the education establishment has received more and more and more and more money every single session. And at some point, they need to look at their own priorities. For example, there are, as we have been able to determine thus far, 214 superintendents who are making as much or more than the governor of the state's $150,000 a year. That's not counting other administrators. So we're not saying that we don't want to hand out a mandate to the local school districts and say how much they can and cannot pay. What we do want them to do is start making some value judgments at the school level. We have as many non-teaching staff as we have teaching staff. Perhaps there needs to be a little reprioritization there. School districts who say that there's no way to cut are not living in the real world either. They've not been cut. Every single session they have received more and more money. It's time to look at efficiencies. So you would cut
education before nursing home funding?
The nursing homes are an entitlement program from Medicaid, and we must keep a nursing home infrastructure here. We are saying take a serious look at this budget and fund the things that are essential services and look at those non-essential services for ways that government can reduce its footprint and can live within the available revenue.
Judge?
Well, let's talk about nursing homes. One of the real problems in nursing homes is that you have many residents who in fact have no family to take care of. They have outlived not only their money, they've outlived their family, and they're relying on that nursing home. The House budget severely cuts provider rates to nursing homes, and under the House budget you're going to have nursing home closures with no place for those patients or residents to go. The Senate budget is a little better, and that's why we need, I think as Arlene just admitted, one of the many examples of how we need the Senate budget over the House budget. And let's talk about public education. What the House budget does is underfund public education by about $9 billion. $8 billion in the foundation school program, over $1 billion in cuts and grants. The Senate is about half that. And the House cuts would be devastating to public education. 65% of our payroll is in teachers. And when you have the kind of deep cuts you're looking at in the House, you're not going to be hiring any new teachers, so we're going to lose a whole cadre of people who are graduating who want to enter teaching. You're going to lose a lot of teachers who will never come back to public education, and you're going to discourage and demoralize a lot of teachers. You're going to crowd up classrooms. Texas already spends 47th per student in the country when you adjust for cost differences, regional cost differences. We're already at the bottom. This is an efficient system, and we have one of the poorest student bodies in terms of family income. We have one of the highest English as a second language, and we get decent results. But if we want to do better, we're going to have to invest in public education. If we want to maintain what we have, we've got to at least have the Senate plan, which will get us to the next biennium. The House plan would be devastating.
Well, the costs have grown over the last 2 decades at about 3 times the rate of the student enrollment growth. And actually, when you adjust for cost of living in Texas, we are about the middle of the pack in the nation as far as how we fund our students. And one of the things that is not changing in this legislative session is the accountability system. We have a strong accountability system, and we believe that that is going to be maintained. Again, why are we talking about laying off teachers when we have more non-teaching staff than we have teachers in most school districts?